Hey, Dillo, how are you? How are you?
I'm okay.
Good, good. How have you been?
Yes. I've been fine.
Good, good.
Though exam a
We're not
problem,
finished
but
with our discussion. We're not finished with our discussion about scholarships. I've been talking to a couple of colleagues here. We'll figure that out in shortly. Okay.
okay.
Thank you. It's 1 o'clock, and I want to get. I do want to get started. I see Trina Hill is here. How are you, Trina?
I'm good. How are you?
I cannot complain. I cannot complain. Is that
Good.
your beautiful house?
Yeah. Yeah. My stylist came over. Yeah,
No
just this
doubt.
morning and put the place together.
I see it. Okay. Can't laugh too much here. Um, um, so we usually have a couple of things that I should be sharing the screen here in the background. We usually have a couple of things that there you go. There we go over here. But let me get started because it's 1 o'clock and people will trickle in. They just
Okay.
they just come and they stay and they go. But for the folks that are going to be online and for the folks that are going to review this on demand, our conversation is going to be great. So I'm looking forward to it. But typically I've got a couple of housekeeping rules that I've got to go over and I'm going to go through them now. This is Cyversity. It's where cyber and diversity meet at that crossroads. And part of that whole process is to bring together a group of folks who have created Cyversity, and they did it to achieve the consistent representation of women and underrepresented minorities in the cybersecurity industry. And they do that through programs that are designed to foster recruitment, equity, inclusion, and retention. And so this is an organization, we're about 7 years old, and we've been doing this for a while and quite successful at it. Cyversity is a membership program, and they've got quite a few benefits. Some of the benefits are focused around career exploration, just to see if you're interested in cybersecurity or the security arts as a practitioner. And also, it gives us an opportunity to develop and review our skills and understand what our skills are to see if we do qualify or are capable of just jumping in and being part of cybersecurity. But there's a whole process to that. But we also have a portion of our membership benefits that help us develop our skills through scholarships, through trainings, through mentorship programs, coaching, and of course, cybersecurity engage events like this one, which is the Cyversity's Impact Interview Series. And lastly, we focus on networking because we all are pretty familiar with the fact that our network is our net worth, excuse me for fumbling there, but that we know that the net development of a network is critical, and we do that through many events and of course the local chapters, of which I'm a member of the Texas chapter. We're a membership organization, and if you're not a member at the moment, you can scan our code, and then you'll receive some information that'll help you in your path toward being a Cyversity membership. And as part of a membership, there are dues, and one of the dues are here on the screen. You can see that students invest in themselves $20 a year. It's an annual subscription, annual fee, $20 a year to gain access to some of the membership benefits that are available at Cyversity. And professionals like you, Ms. Hill, Mrs. Hill, invest $100 a year to be a part of our membership. We focus on a couple of different items: career development, career spotlighting, career transitioning, leadership, tech talks, webinars, podcasts, and the like, and of course our annual conferences, and of course the events like this that happen throughout the year with many of our other chapters. This month, as with many of the months, is Women's History Month. Last month was Black History Month. And this year we're Women's History Month, and I think we've got the perfect interviewee, perfect host to talk about some women's issues and Women's History Month in general. In May, you could see that it's Asian American Month, Pacific Islander and Senior Citizens. June, LGBTQ and Pride Month. And following that in September is Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month. And of course, you could see October, November, and December, Cybersecurity Awareness, Native American Heritage Month, and Military Veterans Month, and Disability Awareness in December. Here's a couple of ground rules, right? We want you to all to mute yourselves and mute so that there's no background noise, just to avoid background noise. However, if you've got a question, don't hesitate to come off, to raise your hand, come off mute and ask the question, or put it in the chat, because we're going to have we'll have a question and answer period at the end of the conversation. But if you have a question during the process, just come in, ask your question. It's a 45-minute conversation, and we'll be focusing on some of the things that we discussed in the past. You know that this session is recorded, and you know that the session is being recorded. And of course, we appreciate you attending. We'd also like to get your feedback, so you can give us your feedback and tell us how this went, how you liked it, what you felt it was worthwhile, and how we should begin to continue to tailor our conversations to meet some of the needs of our members, our sponsors, and of course the general public. Today we're going to be speaking with Trina Hill, Mrs. Trina Hill. She's the Senior Vice President for Technology and Consumer Banking and Treasury at a fintech firm. Probably one that we know, but probably one that we know, but we've been involved with. She's a leader in the technology industry and has been for the past 2 decades, where she's been implementing some very serious platforms and programs and products and support and services, things that we know and things that we aren't aware of. But she's also the founder of Tech Care, which is a women's support group focused on women of color in technology. And so we'll talk about that as well. What I'll do is I will stop sharing here so that we can get back to, hey, look who's there. Thanks everyone for coming. And I know there's more people that'll be showing up. You know how they just trickle in. You guys are pretty normal here to us. Bev Wright and Carlos Sandoval, hey Bev. and believe it or not, Dello, tell her tell her where you're chiming in from or dialing in from. You, Dello, tell her where you're dialing in from.
I'm from Uganda.
Thank you.
See that?
Yeah, it's awesome.
So it's great. It's great. And we usually have a good sized house that comes in and joins us. But I tell you what, we're really happy to have you here. Your coming has been much heralded. Some of our colleagues that know you are like, okay, you're gonna be talking to Trina. Okay. we're gonna either catch this live or we'll catch it after, but it's gonna be great to have you. It's great to have you here today. Hey Carlos, how are you, sir? This is one of my mentees. Are we going to RSA or not? All right, so I'll make my arrangements and we'll get there. Absolutely. But Trina, it's great to have you here on Cyversity's Impact Interview. I mean, this is a year-long series, and in the process, we meet the 4th Saturday of every month, and when we do so, we interview some subject matter experts like yourself whose work and role impacts our lives, whether we know it or not. And so I know that in the time that we have today, we're going to be talking about, we're going to go through a couple of phases, whether we're going to delve in some of their personal life, and so we can get to really know Trina and her background, and then we'll deal with some professional corporate life, and then we'll round it out with some of the things and initiatives that I know are very passionate and critical to you. And so I just want to, I'll start by, asking a question that I ask everybody, tell us a little bit about Trina. I was reading some things. I just noticed that you focus on family and faith. And those things don't always rise to the surface in a conversation when you're talking about cybersecurity. But in this conversation, we definitely want to be able to bring that to the top of the conversation and make that critical and pivotal in our conversation. And I know that's critical to you. So if you just, if you wouldn't mind just giving us some background about Trina, because some of us want to be you at the end of the day. Some of us want to be you. So help us understand help us understand you and get to know you, and then we'll talk about how to get there.
Yeah, so first, thank you for inviting me. You have been a delight. David, just talking to you and talking about, you talking about the passion that comes out as we talk about this organization and the way that you help and serve others. So first and foremost, thank you for allowing me the honor to sit before everyone here and on a Saturday, because I know that you could be somewhere else. You didn't have to be here. And so I thank all of you who are here, and thank you for the opportunity. Look, a little bit about me. You talked about faith. I am a Christian. I do not hide that. I am a woman of faith, and that is the foundation of who I am. I have the privilege of being the wife of Vernon over 20 years. My husband and I have been married for over 20 years, and the mother of our son, Jonathan. I am a caregiver of aging parents that were blue collar parents. I am the first ... I'll tell you, in my family, first to get an undergrad, first to get a master's degree, first girl to go into corporate America. So a lot of firsts in this space, and a number of you probably understand what that feels like in navigating this space as being a Black professional in a predominantly white space. And so that is, I grew up in Athens, Georgia. I tell people the title does not represent the journey, because at the core of who I am, I'm a good old Southern country girl that loves Jesus and loves people. The technology space is the place of ministry for me, right? Because I think we all have a calling and an assignment where we are. And so I'm very intentional and thoughtful about how do I show up? How do I represent leadership and lean into my faith? Because that's another thing, right? That it's very abnormal for leaders at my level to feel comfortable to even talk about their faith. But the reality is faith is a part of DE&I when we say it, right? And I do have the privilege of being the senior vice president in technology and leading very diverse teams that have different faiths, but creating a space, a safe space where they can come if they need to pray at noon, right? We have, I think it was Ramadan yesterday that's starting, honoring where they are, learning where they are, but them also honoring where I am, because as I lead them, I feel stewardship over them. I'm responsible for their care and their development in my organization. And so I love people. I know I'm an outlier in tech because a lot of times, we get people who have very little EQ in this space, but I believe that I've been called, as many of you have been called, to serve and to honor and to be the light in these workspaces that we are in. So that's a little bit about me. I'm sure you and I could talk more, but that's a high level summary.
I am, wow, that is, and to be able to just say it, mean it, and just expound on it with no trepidation is, that is a breath of fresh air. That is a breath of fresh air. And, because of that is awesome. I don't know how to say it any other way than that, because obviously your belief system has been part of the foundation that has led you to where you are, to get to the point where you allow. So I'm going to say this. A good friend of mine, and I think I might have mentioned this to you before, Trina, is a good friend of mine said to me, Dave, things are going good, blah, blah, blah. But have you ever thought about making God your strategic business partner?
Yes.
Right. And so, even to today, I'll admit that I struggle with it, even though I'm a preacher's kid. I struggle with, well, how do I do that genuinely? Not just do because, I can meditate and pray and get into that, but how do I do it genuinely and make it stick? So maybe we'll have some conversations about that down the road, right?
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to
good.
that, right? But I know that your work, and I know that your work as a technology executive is a critical role, and I know you serve a great organization. For our listeners and folks that are here and that are coming, exactly what is it that you do? I mean, I know we want to be you, but what is it, and how do we get there?
Yeah, so look, I think that there is the job they pay you to do, and then there is the calling and the assignment, as I mentioned before, that you've been called to, right? So what they pay me to do is the easiest way to think about it is I'm like a CIO for our finance function. So I'm responsible for all the technology for our online bank, any savings deposits, money market accounts, et cetera. I'm responsible for making sure that that online bank functionality is up and running. In addition to like the website, our app that we have. So I'm responsible for that. And I'll say that's more focused on external customers. Internal customers, I'm also responsible for technology for the other part of the finance function that a lot of times we don't think about, right? Your budgeting systems, your treasury, which is money movement in and out of the company. And also regulatory reporting. Every single quarter, right? Every company, if you are publicly traded, you have documents that you must file. There are people that actually do that, right? And so I have the pleasure of serving our organization, just making sure that money movement, accounting for the money, right? And making sure that we have our financial statements in place and in order in a timely fashion. Is on par. I know a number of you have probably heard about SVB Bank, right? So you think in terms of the FDIC coming in, there's a lot of work that banks have to do to account for customers and their accounts. And there's tons of things that go on behind the scenes that a lot of times you don't think about because you just go and deposit your money, you take your money out. But my team is concerned about all those systems and making sure that we have appropriate data. So something like a SVB happens, the FDIC can make the right decisions to support the organization. So that's a little bit about my team. I'll say that's my job. That's the day job that they pay me for. That ebbs and flows, right? I am pulled into sometimes some M&A work. But the other part of my job that is I coach and mentor a lot of folks inside of our organization. And that is a diverse group of people. So it's not just women, it's not just Black women, because I'm a servant leader in the organization. And so wherever I can help support leaders be better, create a psychologically safe space, which we'll talk a little bit about that later, creating that space for you to come and be bare and not have to be perfect, but to be who you are, and to give you coaching and mentorship, and also to have honest and frank conversations. Because sometimes we say we want something, but we're not willing to pay the cost, or we haven't counted the cost. Right. And sometimes we need to have those honest conversations with people to say, you said you want this, but are you willing to pay this in this season? Right. Because I mentioned I'm a mother, right? I'm a wife. There have been times where I have been asked to do things or presented with different types of roles. And that's inside and outside of the company throughout my career. And I had to assess the cost and then determine, was I willing to pay it? Right. And a lot of times we don't have those conversations. What we do is, a lot of times mentors and coaches and sponsors will say, well, absolutely, you should go for that. Well, I want you to live a full life. I don't want your house crumbling and you're doing great at work. I don't want you doing great at home and your work life is crumbling. We gotta have balance in both and define success based off of how you define it. Because your family matters and the work you do, it matters as well. I think you're on mute, David.
I do that often. A couple of things you mentioned there. You mentioned balance and being able to balance your work life and your personal life, and then any of the other things that you're involved in. How do you create weights and balances and checks and balances around that, just to make sure that you are balancing? And are there indications that come up that say, like an alert system, because you're managing online systems, and an alert system pops up, there's something offline here or not right here? But how do you do that personally? And how does that? Yeah.
So I have a board of directors. And let me tell you a little bit about, and this is the group of people, these are my truth tellers. These are people that love me and care for me. So I have a therapist. I've always had one. I had one for over 15 years because I believe in therapy. As I stated before, I am the first ... of many things. And so although my mother, who believes in hard work, and my father, hard work, my father was a salesman, naturally, there are these spaces that I'm navigating that they can't help me navigate because I don't have the experience. Right. I live in a different area than my parents lived in. So me raising a Black son in a more affluent white area looks very different than them raising us where we were near family and it was predominantly mixed spaces. the good old fashioned country towns and living that we did right around Athens, Georgia. So I have a therapist. I have multiple coaches that have come and gone throughout the years. And those coaches, some are professional, some are personal, right? I am married. So I have some older men and women that are around me to help me navigate my marriage. And then I have wonderful girlfriends in community. And so with that group of people, I'm clear about what I want, when I want it, and then they will check me. Right. They will check me. So I created a group of people who could call me into account. And the other person that I would probably say is really key to this board of directors is my husband, because he is, anytime there's a new job, anytime there's a new opportunity, it doesn't even matter if it's a small project, he and I have to have a conversation, because the reality is when I take on more responsibility, so does the family. Right. It's something's got to give. And so there are some seasons where, I was traveling a lot. He had to carry a lot more stuff at the home, getting our son where he needed to be. Right. But that was an agreement between he and I. And then there were some seasons where my parents needed me more. Right. And I knew that with them not living near me, that was going to be a greater burden on him. And I didn't have the right support system. So then that means there were some areas where I had to pull back. But he and I are constantly conversating, to be honest. And he's my red light. Him and a couple of my friends are my big flashing red lights, because he will say, my husband's very quiet. But when he said, okay, it's enough. And what that means is I'm now, the stress and the pressure of life and work is now impacting the household. And so now something's got to change, or I'm not showing up as my full self. Right. Because it shows up, it will show up. You're tired, you get sick, right? Your patience is not as normal as you're not. And I'm a loving person, but look, I'm a human and I love Jesus, but I am human. But the things that the flow of the household will change if I'm not in the right alignment, if I'm not in the right alignment with God, and if I have too much stuff on my plate that I'm trying to do out of my flesh, it will show up. And so I tell everybody, you need a board of directors. If you don't have a therapist and you can afford one, get one, because that's a safe space. They can give you tools and strategies for the things that are coming. But then if you have a spouse, like, lean into them, because that you and that person is not just me as an SVP. Him and my son have had to go along. There's been a sacrifice that they've had to make as well. And so we as a family have to make sure that we're in alignment. And if there's a pushback there, then I respect and I honor that. And I adjust.
Wow. Guys, mark this well. Right? In your choosing, mark this well, right? I mean, it's just critically important, especially, I don't know how your household is, who's the breadwinner or any of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Those things are critical, especially in these days when women are more so becoming leaders of the house and breadwinners. And, mm-hmm. The traditional approach there is being not necessarily, it's being challenged, right? So you let's be honest, it's being challenged. And so you make those adjustments and you make those determinations. And it just sounds as if that whole personal board of directors things is a foundational mm-hmm. group that truth tellers who will tell you the truth, who mm-hmm. actually love you and will tell you how they actually see it themselves. So this is great. I know one of the questions I was, talking to you about is, assessing the cost. You'd mentioned that, assessing mm-hmm. the cost to be involved in some of the things that you're involved in. Now, of course, the cost, how have you dealt with this assessment of cost? What lesson did you learn from it, from assessing the cost, and either making a not so good choice, it didn't turn out the mm-hmm. greatest because you made a decision as a group, you went that direction, it didn't work mm-hmm. out. Give us a lesson learned or two that you had to experience.
Yeah. So I was, I'll talk to you. So there was a role that I took, it on a good day in Atlanta, it would take me 45 minutes to drive to this location, right? So I was, this was before COVID, you had to actually go into the office every day. And on a good day, it was taking about 45 minutes to drive. If it rained, that was probably about an hour, 20 to hour, 30-minute commute. And that's one way. And at the time, our son was, I believe he was in middle school. getting ready to transition to middle. He was in elementary school, transitioning to middle school. And, you know, during that transition, it's a very difficult transition for kids typically, right? Because they're trying to figure it out. They're not kids, but their hormones are starting to kick in and they're trying to figure that out. And so I started to notice, like, I'm not spending time with him, right? And some of that showed up in him being frustrated, him not engaging with me like he would normally engage with me. He is an only child, and boys and mothers, if you know, that relationship typically is going to be pretty tight.
Mhm.
And so I just started to pay attention to some of the behaviors that I was seeing. And so I had a great job. I was on a trajectory to get to SVP in the GE days faster. I was on that trajectory. And I went to my leader and was like, this isn't working. Right. So I can't, like, I got to find another job because I can't keep doing this commute. I'm not there to help him with his homework. I'm getting home at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. That's just not working. And so I took a step back. I decided I took a role. Actually, that's how I ended up at the company I'm in now. Took a role 15 minutes away from my house. I took a step back in my career. I was more available to him, and it was the right decision. But again, I was very thoughtful and mindful of the cost, because I could have continued my trajectory, probably made far more money than what I'm making today, but I wasn't willing to pay the cost of time lost with him. Right.
Right. Right. You
Right.
mentioned, I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No, you're good.
You just mentioned money. I mean, money and technology, money and life, money, period. One of the scriptures we
David, you went on mute again. Oh, there you go.
money.
Yes.
money being, you know, the challenge in our life. I mean, it looked like you stepped back from money in order to solidify your relationship with your son and make that part of your life more critical. I mean, how did that affect you personally about having to make that choice of, you know, I'm a father, I got 4 boys, right? I minister to men, I know the deal. And so the question being is, you know, and I had to do the travel like you. The question that I always had is, like, what's more important now? Do I provide for my sons? Do I make the money and provide for my sons, or do I, you know, take a lesser or something like that? You made the choice, right? And then then you sort of made the adjustment. But how did money not play a bigger, larger role in that decision?
It goes back to debt management. Right. So one of the things, we've never lived above our means. And I am the main breadwinner. I make more money than my husband does in our household, but it doesn't matter because it's still all of our money. But what I'll tell you is we have never lived above our means. I was very, you know, he and I both are very thoughtful about how much money we spend. And we probably are very much that way too, because again, we do play Medicare, Medicaid, bank, right, to our parents. Right. I mean, that's real, you know, if they need copays and things of that nature. So we were pretty conservative when it came to the amount of debt that we had. And we, you know, to me, that was the best decision. I always say, you can make more money. I can't get more time. I can only raise our son one time.
Yeah.
Right. I can make some more money. Right. Like if we need to deliver pizzas and put him in the car while I'm delivering pizzas, we could do that. Right. But the time that you have, you only have a certain amount of time to influence him and really be a voice in his life before they stop listening. I think they always hear you, but it doesn't seem like they're listening because they've got to choose their own way, right? But you have a very short window. In that time frame, it passes quickly, right? You said you have four boys. That influence, you only have a certain window. And so for us, look, it was an easy choice. And I'll say God honored that because I did pray about it before I said, oh, this is what I think, this is what was on my heart. And he honored it by helping me accelerate in my career when I made that choice. Because it was a step back, but then it was an acceleration to where I am today.
You know, I could probably talk to you a lot about your journey. It's just, first of all, I'm proud to have a senior executive woman in technology that has the moral fortitude that you have. I think there's only one or two other women that I've interviewed that are just like that. It's faith-driven, you know, the whole covering of faith and direction is guided by that. And they're just darn good. They're just doing incredible. I want to transition in the time that we have left to the things that your servant leader part of your life. Because you are like outstanding. You have this super blown out things that you're doing around servant leader. I know we haven't gotten through all the technology pieces of your life, but we'll get through that at some other time. But give us some idea, some understanding, or give us some insight into what you're doing with Tech Care. That's a company that you founded, and also a company that you're, the CEO of.
Yeah. So look, Tech Care was a vision actually that is still sitting on my board today, that God had given me about 4 years ago. And it really came out of me understanding and me seeing as I coach and mentor women and pray with women, right? And is that women of color in technology oftentimes don't have a psychologically safe space. We're not quite sure how, everything down from we're not sure how to wear our hair, we're not sure how we need to speak. It's a constant questioning of self that happens. And I'm not going to say that doesn't happen with men of color, but what I am going to say is that it definitely happens with women of color. And so I started seeing this trend, and quite frankly, I've had my own experiences where people are talking over me having to lead with my pedigree instead of me showing up in a meeting, people, even in a restaurant, handing someone, a white male who works for me, the check versus them, them handing me the check because they wouldn't assume that I would be the executive at the table who has to pay when we go out to eat. And so I've had, the microaggressions, the micro insults, any type of insults that you probably could imagine. But I start to see this trend, and the more and more I'm talking to these women, I was like, okay, how do I impact the lives of these women? Because this is life or death. So it went from an idea to me deciding to just go ahead and launch. I had a call one day from a client that I was coaching. She had a terrible review and was just in a very toxic environment at the time. And she was on the phone with me crying, contemplating suicide. Okay, exactly. Your job is not worth your life. I don't care how much money they pay you. I don't care what your bills are, right? And I'm a firm believer that God does not desire for his daughters to live in it, to operate in those spaces, unless that's a part of your assignment, which means he's equipped you for it, right? And so I decided, I was like, I will not have another woman on my phone who is crying, who is concerned, who is contemplating suicide because she's in this difficult space and she's not equipped. Because what we have done is equip women of color to survive, and that's not what we should be doing. Surviving sometimes means giving of self. It's sitting there and listening and being disrespected and dishonored, and not heard and not valued, and taking on work with no resources, and being set up, right? Glass cliff assignments exist. We know that to be true. But I was like, this is not God's desire for us. And so I created Tech Care to create this space, just to make sure we take care of ourselves. And also a little homage as well to my grandmother, because anytime someone would leave her house, she would always remind you to take care of yourself. Well, in this space, the women of color need to take care of themselves, and understanding that taking care of yourself is required, and that you need to live a full life. God did not create you just to come to work and pay your bills. He meant that we were to live a life, but live it more abundantly, and to live it on purpose. So that's my story as it relates to this space, and I just pray that we continue to transform lives where we provide coaching, community, right, and compassion, because a lot of times Black women or women of color, we don't get very much compassion. We're told to suck it up and keep moving, or they will put us in programs where they will not deal with the workplaces that we're in. So it doesn't matter how much programming you give us, if we still are not living in a safe space, some of the things that you're expecting to get out of us is not going to happen, because you're trying to plant seed on rock.
Not fertile ground.
Right? Yeah.
you mentioned, so one of my questions to you was about what I see in executives like yourself is this huge issue of this huge thing called why. Many of the folks that I've spoken to, they tell us what their why is, and their why is their background. It's the thing that fortifies and motivates them and drives them to where they are. I hear the faith part, and I hear the servant leader part. Are those the only focuses? Are there more things? Are there other things that drive you to be who you are and what you?
I would definitely say, God, because I want to please him. I want to honor him in every single thing that I do. Our son, right? Because he is a part of the legacy, what we placed in him. I want to see the fruit of that in my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, as I am the manifestation of my grandmother's prayers and her hard work and those people that have come before me that I may have never ever met. And really the world, I'll be honest. I think sometimes we get so caught up in influence that we don't think about impact. Each of us has been called and uniquely created to do something great that only we can do the way we do it, right? And sometimes we're so focused on being on the stage that we don't think about, well, what stage should I be on? And how should I be performing? And even if I should be performing, should I be helping the people perform? What is your assignment? What has God uniquely created you and called you to do that nobody can do the way you do, right? Because if you are operating in purpose, then it'll give you a sense of peace. But when you're not, there's going to be friction because you're not in alignment. You're not in the right space. Now, let me also qualify that a little bit. A lot of times we think that positions that we're in is going to fulfill our purpose, our job, but your position is a part of the purpose, but it is not the purpose. Your purpose is greater than any position that you can ever hold because God will move you from place to place to place, right? I've had I think I've been with 5 or 6 companies at this point in my career. And so we really need to lean in and say, what is really my calling? What brings me joy? And also understanding that a lot of that you may not get everything you want in your job. I love my job. I have an opportunity to serve and lead people because that's my sweet spot. I get to learn about technology, but the joy that I get out of tech care is very different than the joy that I get within my organization, right? And I understand that. As I go serve my parents, that's a different joy. If I go volunteer in the Senior Citizen Center, that's a different joy that I get. That's a different piece of the purpose that I get, right? And me operating in that space. As I go to my church and serve there, it's different. We've got to understand that everything God has called you to do is not tied to just your job. It's bigger than that. Even being in this Cyversity space, if you are meeting with men and women, talking to them and coaching them or being an ear, that's purposeful work. That's not your job. Nobody's paying you to do it. But we've got to get out of this thing of we spend so much time trying to go up the ladder that we're not saying, well, am I on the right ladder? Am I operating in my gift? Is this aligned to my purpose?
Wow. This is heavy. This is heavy. And you know why it's heavy? Because first of all, it's not common to hear it from someone who's it's not common to, they just don't put it out on Front Street like that. And so it's great that it's there. For folks that are what we would consider non-Christians, how do you help them see this as a path, or how do you help them see their pathway to not necessarily, how do you help them see the pathway? Because it's broader than just any one specific thing that I could mention. But how do you help them see the pathway to, oh wait, I'm not a Christian, but how do you,
Yeah, so actually it's funny. So being in tech, right, I'm leading and serving people who are Hindu, who are Buddhist, right, that some people do not have a faith, right? They don't believe in Christ. The beautiful thing that I'll tell you that I get to see is they know I care about them. So they talk to me about their faith and I get to share about mine where appropriate, right? Because I don't push my faith on you. I don't tell you have to believe what I believe, but I do tell you this is my stance. This is my standard, right? And so believe it or not, by me being free to show them who I am, it's given them the privilege to show me who they are. And there is mutual respect because I care about them as people. I don't not like you because you don't believe what I believe. I still love you because God has called us to love everybody. He didn't say love who you love. I mean, who's like you. He said love you one another. That's what he said. And so when people know that you care about them, the things that separate us, whether it be race, gender, religion, right? Even I would even say your political stances and parties, right? Those things go away in the sense of it's not a separator. It's just a part of who you are, right? So my faith is no different than my green eyes that I have. They just look at that as a part of being who they are. I look at their faith as a being part of who they are. At 12 o'clock, I know they're going to pull their mats out and they're going to pray. They're going to be late to my meeting. I can honor and respect that. I have individuals that work for me that are Jewish. I know the days they're going to be out. We talk about their faith and their religion. I honor and respect that. And so I think when you create a space where you can show up and walk in your faith, it gives other people permission to do that. But more importantly, when they see your love, then the separations and the differences doesn't matter. They're just different. They're just respected differences.
You know, we came to this conversation all about, you and I came to this conversation through a good friend of ours, all about technology, but this is so much more than technology. This is, in technology, I always tell folks that I work with that in that continuum of people, process, and technology, process and technology, I only focus on people. That's really what I focus on, because I think that's where we get the biggest bang for our buck in dealing and working with people. As you go through and continue to go through in your journey, because it's not over yet. Where are you going next? What's the next biggest milestone, and what's what are we going to do when we, proverbial statement, when we grow up?
That's a great question. If you could see my dream board, you would see about 20 things on the dream board. Because I think there are whispers that are happening where we're giving visions and things that we probably should be working on. I would love for Tech Click Care to be global. That is something that I would love to just create a global organization where we can serve and expand outside the United States. That's part of it. There are some products and services that are on my dream board that have nothing to do with technology, but I'm an entrepreneur at heart as well. And the other part to me right now is just, our son is graduating and leaning into him and making sure that he's off to college well as he matures, and we continue to support him because that is my heart walking outside of my body. And if we can't get that right, then all this other stuff really doesn't matter, because that's generational impact, right? The money, I know we always talk about generational legacy. We're going to leave our kids money, blah, blah, blah. My grandmother made $15 a week and she raised 8 children. And she could not give us a lot of money when I was growing up. But what she did give me was this foundation of faith that I have. How you treat people, how you walk in integrity, how you love people, how you work, right? And so for us, if we are able to give him legacy of the foundation of faith, him understanding who he is and who God has called him to do, for him to live a life on purpose, and for him to impact those he's around. It doesn't matter to me where he works, but it matters if it's purposeful and if he's in alignment. Then we will have done what we were supposed to do, because that will then trickle to my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, my great-grandchildren, and then the communities around us, right?
Yeah, it's a ripple effect.
Absolutely.
It's a ripple effect, and it starts with you. Right? It starts with you saying, it starts with you. Instead of saying, we got to do something, I kind of work back to, I got to do something, and if somebody wants to come with me, well, fine.
That's right.
If you had a question to ask, and I'm getting ready to come to the audience to ask folks in the audience, if you want to come off mute or you want to ask a question of Mrs. Hill, please do put it in the chat, or just come off and talk. This is a safe place to come out and just talk, right? So if you had a golden rule or a process, a 3-step process to get from where a person is today to where they need to be in the next iteration or the next sort of evolution of their existence, what would those 3 steps look like and be? I mean, I know that's a lot to ask for 3 steps. And
No, we're good. I think it really goes down to 3 questions. Who are you? Not who they told you should be, not what they said about you, but who are you? And knowing who you are, you identifying what you want, not what they told you could have, not where they told you could work, but what do you want? What does your heart desire? And that question is not just a question for your job. That's a question for your life. What do you want your family to be? What do you want your legacy to be? Like, what type of environment do you want to work in? Where do you want to live? How do you want to feel when you go on vacation, right? You own your time. You lease it to other people. Who are you willing to lease it to, right? And then what's the cost? What are you willing to pay? Because everything's going to cost you something, right? What are those trade-offs? I think a lot of times we get caught up again in the world says we should be climbing the ladder. And I love the forward progression, but that may not be your assignment. That may not align with who you are. That may not give you joy. It may not give you pleasure. So you need to figure out who you are. What do you want? Because you only get one life.
right,
And what are you willing to pay for it?
right. Is there a mechanism that you would suggest or prescribe to get in touch with these 3 types of questions? I'm assuming. Well, I mean, don't worry about my assumptions. Is there a mechanism? I know yours is faith, right?
Yeah. So there's an exercise that I have my coaching clients do.
Yeah, go. Here it comes.
Yeah. So I'll give you a couple of tips, and then if you want more, definitely reach out to me. You can go to techcarewoc.com and schedule some time with me there as well. Even men, if you want to set some time up, we definitely can have a conversation. Get a blank sheet of paper, no lines, because lines will confine you. Get a blank sheet of paper and literally sit with yourself quietly and just ask yourself, who are you? Like, who are you really? Like, what are you good at? What do you like? What don't you like? Why don't you like it? What brings you joy? What frustrates you? Just ask yourself those questions, and you're going to write that down on a blank sheet of paper. Second sheet of paper is, what are your gifts? What are you naturally gifted to do? And a lot of you may say, well, I don't know what my gifts are. So here's what I want you to do. Ask your friends. If your parents are living, ask them, what were you good at as a child? Because guess what? What we've been called and created to do has been inside of us all along. And a lot of times our parents saw these glimpses of these things, these gifts and these talents early on. I'm sure, David, if I were to sit down and talk to you about each of your sons, you could tell me 1 or 2 or 3 things that they were really good at as children, or they were curious about as children, that when we talk about them today, you can see it manifesting in what they do, right? Absolutely. And then the third sheet of paper, after you hear back from them, the third sheet of paper is, what do you want? Based off of what your likes and your dislikes are, what your gifts are, then what do you really want? And then I want you to look at all 3, because you'll start to see a commonality, right?
Right.
You're going to see a commonality that's going to happen. And then that should then lead you to the business that maybe you want to start, or there's a role in your organization or outside of your organization you want to focus on. Or maybe it's a creative thing. Maybe you want to start drawing, or something that has nothing to do with work. You may want to go do volunteer work. It'll lead you to where you should be spending some time and energy. Because your gifts will make room for you. But if you don't know what they are, it's hard for you to even recognize as a gift, because you're just being who you are. So I hope that was helpful.
I don't know. I can't talk about everybody else, but Dave took notes. Dave took some real notes there. And I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to report back.
Okay. All right.
Do that. All right. I'm going to report back. You have my commitment on that, because what you said in many ways today what you said in many ways today has been so impactful. That's
Thank
why we
you.
have these impact interview series. And I'm so happy Cyversity's put it together, allowed us to put this thing together so that we can have these kind of conversations with folks just like you,
Thank you.
who are willing to bear their soul in, if you will. I'll use that term. So does anyone have any questions at all for Mrs. Hill? Don't be ashamed to just come off and just ask a question. It's okay. We're in a real safe space here. That's why Cyversity created this, for us to be okay and vulnerable where we need to, as appropriate, be vulnerable, and then ask any questions. If you want to put it in the chat, that'll be great. Put it in the chat and ask a question. Anybody?
Well, David, it's Beverly. I just want to, hi. This is more of a comment. So I definitely want to thank Cyversity. Thank you, David, for hosting this. And Trina, oh my God, my eyes are water filled. My spirit is like floating right now. So thankful for you. And to take care, because when you mentioned about toxic environment, that's exactly where I came from. And it's bad when it's your own color. And, you know, they are, you know, just, I'm not going to go into details, but just a very toxic atmosphere to the point where it leaves you questioning, am I really this way? When your customer base is saying you are not that way, you know, and, you know, I appreciate you being so, first of all, I love the order. Of course, God first, family, and then your job. You know, that is the way it should work. I'm definitely going to be listening to you in rotation with my pastor, because my pastor been talking about being in alignment and in the will of God, which we're understanding the will to be one. Like Jesus said, not my will or want, but your will be done.
That's right.
So thank you so much. This ministered to me, and I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
Thank you. You're gonna make me cry. You're gonna make me cry, Beverly.
You know, it's interesting that you just need that. And there's another question that popped up, but I think this is necessary ethically in corporate America. You know, and if you just allow me a second, because if in corporate America, there's always this conflict or friction between the corporate environment and the human environment. And, you know, I've managed union environments where that was, the level of acidity was so heavy that, you know, you had to talk to the people that you were serving, talk them off that these people, right? And you had to talk them off of that so that they can go and do their jobs. And you had to empower them so that I would tell them, hey, look, the cats in the office with the suits, they ain't coming out here and doing this. They ain't coming out here and doing this. So realize you got power, and let's work with what we have to have a collaborative conversation with these folks before you go out on strike and screw up my
right.
So you know, it's just so. But I think this is necessary in corporate America to have this level of ethics.
Yes.
Because if you have this level of ethics, you won't be trying to screw people on the reg. I'm from Brooklyn, so you know I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna talk that way. So I've got a couple of questions I think that are in here. I wanted to just get to them. They're either questions or comments. I just wish to say, I just wish to say that this talk today was amazing. This was indeed a blessing. Thank you so very much. She's talking to you.
Thank you.
And I feel that way too. It's just incredible. I knew it was going to be on and popping, but I didn't know it was going to be Brooklyn style, like transparency, the level of transparency that came out in this conversation. And, you know, I'm going to pray for you to keep that level, because, you know, it can come, and then you got to just stand there and deal with that. As my son would say, Dad, don't ask for your load to be lighter. Let's just ask for our shoulders to be broader. This is my son took it. I was like, huh? I looked at her, huh? Right, yeah. So Thank you, Trina.
Thank
The
you.
question was Sharonda, I hope I said that name right, Sharonda. She's asking, are you going to be at RSA this year?
I do not believe I am. I will confirm, but probably not. Just because again of the climate and everything else that's going on in this banking industry.
Yep.
And also my son is graduating. And so I am going
I've
to make
asked a
sure.
couple people in your organization that they come, and everyone has said, no.
Okay. There probably will. There may be some people that may come, but more than likely this year I probably won't be able to make it. But next year,
Sure,
maybe I'll
sure.
be able to be a speaker. Maybe.
Hey. So look, I know we're about almost 2 hours here that we've been talking, and I don't know if anybody else has any comments that they would like to make or say, but I know this has been emotionally, spiritually, just a mind-blowing conversation, right? We had some smart people on this. I've had the blessing to have smart people on, and what you've done today is uplifting. It's been uplifting.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
I'm sorry, David, one question.
I want to meet your husband.
Okay.
I got to catch this cat. I got to see what this cat is up to. So. Yes, Beverly.
I'm sorry, did you say this conversation has been going on for 2 hours? I thought it started at 2.
Where are you at?
Really?
You in Georgia.
Wait a minute, what time did this start?
It started at 2. What time is it now? Hey, don't. I know where you're going, Trina. I'm time challenged. Yes. It started at 1 for me, and it's almost 2 o'clock now.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
You had a question, Beverly.
Oh, that was it. I mean, you mentioned 2 hours, and I'm thinking, okay, I thought it started at.
He meant 2 o'clock. He meant 2 o'clock.
Oh,
yeah. It's all good.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trina. Thank you.
It's all good.
Gotta
2 o'clock
help her.
Eastern.
You know that.
Yeah, it's
Gotta
all
help her.
good. It's all good. It's all good.
Hey,
Yeah, I
Trina, you
have a
just came on.
question. Yeah, I've been in and off of mute because I have children running around in the background, but I'm a career changer. I built my insurance business since 2007. And whenever I decided to have children in 2013, I put my insurance agency on maintain mode so I can be the mom to breastfeed 3 children for 6 years, cloth diaper, make baby food, and just be the wife that my husband needed him to be while he rose through the ranks of law enforcement. So now my role has changed so much and so drastically because of the passion that I've recently found on this new journey. I just started in tech about a year ago. Okay. And I just love the people. I love the networking aspect. I love the information and everything I'm hearing and experiencing. I'm a volunteer at the RSA, so they paid for my pass. It's like so many things are happening, and I'm having a hard time adjusting because I was in maintain mode for the past 10 years with my insurance agency. And now I'm back in pre-marriage, pre-mom mode. And I'm really losing touch of a lot of things. So I am thankful that I've joined on to this call because I'm going to join on to Tech Care today. I feel like being connected with someone like you that shares very, very similar values to me. My first value and foremost goal in my life is to have a successful family. I want my family straight. So I want to just be around other women who's doing it all. Awesome. And I feel like it is possible. I see it, and I'm on track too. But we all need a village.
Yes.
And I've been looking for village, and I'm so thankful that I have Trina. Thank you.
You're welcome. And look, the one thing I'll leave you because I know we have a couple minutes. Give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. A lot of times we as women take on a lot. But the beautiful thing about having a husband, and I will say the right husband,
Yes, amen.
because every man is not the same, right? Just like every woman is not the same. But sometimes we're carrying things we shouldn't carry because they'll carry it for us if we ask. And we don't have to have an A in everything.
You're right.
A
And I
C
feel
will
like
pass. You don't need an
you're
A plus
right.
in everything. And guess
I
what?
feel
No
like
matter how
Caesar
much you do,
fails. I don't know.
right? But it's not that. No, and no matter what you do, no matter, you can get every, and I look like, I love my 18-year-old, and David can probably do a whole session about parenting, raising those 4 boys. You do what you can, and God will have to take care of the rest, because they're their
Ooh.
own people and they're going to make their own decisions. You do what
You're
you
right.
can, and he'll take care of the rest. And there's no pass or fail. All
Oof.
you can do is love them and parent them, because you still have your own life that God expects for you to live. And one day they're going to leave.
Oof. Don't say that.
Right?
Don't do that.
No, they are. They are
My
going to
girls are
leave, and you want them
9,
to.
7, and 3. 9,
Yeah, but
7,
they're
and
gonna
3. I
leave.
have a
They're gonna be, but you're gonna be fine. Give yourself grace. Give yourself
okay.
grace.
I look
All
forward to
right.
connecting.
Yes,
They
absolutely.
are gonna leave, Sharonda. They are
Mhm.
certainly gonna leave. I mean,
And listen,
my youngest is 25 and recording artist, and between Austin and California, it's like constant. I know one day it's gonna go that way and not come back.
exactly.
And I'm a divorced guy, and my sons moved to Austin with me when I left. So
Mhm.
what Trina's saying, what I'm getting out of what Trina's saying to some degree is that what you put into it is what you get out of it.
Mhm.
You don't put, even being divorced, if you don't just get up every morning and drive over there and take them to school. That's about it. So you
Mhm.
got to put something in to get something out. So it's not, and still you got to be their father. So
Yeah.
Trina, what's your parting statements to us, please? You want to make me cry, all y'all.
Yeah.
My Ananias is popping up.
What I would tell you, and I know it's gonna sound cliche, live your life. Have joy, find joy, be grateful that you're here, and walk in your purpose. Because we only get to do this one time, right? And time passes so fast. I'll just share, I lost a number of coworkers within the span of 2 years. And these were not old people. These were, one of them was sick, but it was like that. Life passes like that. And the impact is not just about, sometimes it's not about death. It could be an illness that just keeps you from walking. Live your life and live each day grateful and thankful, but live it in a way that you honor God by walking in your purpose and your passion, because there are people out there that are waiting for you. There are people out there, just like I took that phone call, that their lives is standing in a balance. And if you are not walking in your passion and you're not walking in your purpose, then we may lose them.
Right.
So live your life, but operate in your purpose and your passion, and go do what you love, and do it unapologetically. That would be those would be my parting words.
Thank you very much. I just want to share this with you guys as we leave. This has been Trina L. Hill. She's the senior vice president for a fintech firm and her work there is with technology, consumer banking, and treasury. But obviously, there's more that she does for her organization and for the people that she serves in that organization. And that's something critical that she said. She serves the people that work for her, right?
Mhm.
It's just critical. It's not. It's often we hear they work for me. These are my
Mhm.
people. They work for me. But in this conversation, we've heard her talk about the fact that she serves the people that work for them. It's probably why she's at the organization and they treasure her as they do, as I've read. The upcoming months that we're going to be seeing, I just wanted to run through this for all of you. And Trina, you are welcome to come back and host and interview somebody yourself.
Thank you. I would love that. We'll have to talk, David.
You want to, and I'm going to go through this list, and you might even want to interview some of these folks. Right. Next month is going to be Dr. Louis Pate. He's the Information Security Director Operations for CACI. It's a government contractor. After him, in the month of is that May, is Greg Richardson, a good friend of mine out here in Dallas. He's a CISO advisory. He holds the same kind of role I do with Netscope. He holds that with Palo Alto, is CISO advisor, right? The next month after that, is going to be Marilyn Harris. I met Marilyn Harris. She's a veteran. She's a nurse. She's a nurse veteran. She's a self-made cybersecurity practitioner. Did it on her own way, and is one of the champions of change. And you can see that she's gotten an award from Obama's White House for doing that work. Behind that, after that, in July is one of my colleagues over at Netscope, Lamont Orange. He's a 20-year vet. He's got an incredible background in security, but also he's got an incredible background in leadership and in finance and investment. He's a great brother to get to know. Behind him is one of our board members for Cyversity, Olivia Roche. Right, Olivia is the founder of her own group as well. Has done an incredible job in recruitment, but also in diversity and inclusion. Right, but she's going to be speaking about our mentorship program, and she's bringing two of her colleagues along to discuss, mentorship, Cyversity style, blah blah blah, Cyversity style. And in September, Hispanic Latino month, I've asked, and she's agreed. Elizabeth Augusto, who's the Chief Operating Officer with Bank of New York, come and speak to us about not all things Latino that we should be learning more about in our, because our culture is broader and bigger. And she's an incredible sister that is going to be talking about her role and her journey as well. All of these conversations, including this one with Daniel Conroy, the Chief Digital Technology Officer for Raytheon, and ending with Sharon Burgess, who's another one of our board members at Cyversity. She's the SVP of BDC Travel and Chief Information Security Officer of BDC Travel. It's a great lineup this year. I'm so pumped. I'm so pumped. It's a great lineup this year that we've got, and got some great people coming in and speaking. And so listen, thanks for your time. Thanks for your efforts. I put that in the chat. Please go to that chat link and here, I'll put it in here again. Never mind. I put it in the chat, and it's the link to the feedback. They'll probably send you an email as well, but just give us your feedback on how this went and how you thought this went and how you thought we did, and any notes for improvement, please, because improvement is the biggest room in the world. Let's just improve. So give us notes for improvement as well, so, and topics and things that we should be doing. In the meantime, Trina, woo, deep. And so that's really all I could say about it. It was just really immensely deep. You just hit us over the head where we needed to be hit. So I'm really pleased, really pleased. So I thank everybody that's still here, and everyone that came. This will be on demand, so you can go to the website and you can get a copy of this as well. Trina and everyone, thanks again for being here. Appreciate it. Carlos, Los Lobos, I'll see you next month in RSA, buddy. All right, good. All right, guys, have a good weekend. Be well.
Thank you, y'all too. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Trina.
What's up, T? What's up, T?